All right, so picture this with me, okay? 1966 Brazil. It's a foggy day on Ventim Hill near Rio. You've got a kid flying his kite. Seems like a normal day, right? Well, not quite, because he ends up stumbling upon, get this, two bodies.
Yeah, and these aren't just any bodies, no. We're talking men dressed up in suits like they were going to a business meeting or something. Except they're lying dead on a remote hillside with lead masks covering their eyes.
Lead masks, can you believe that? I mean, you all requested a deep dive on the lead masks case, and let me tell you, it's one of those mysteries that just grabs you from the start. So many strange details, no obvious answers, just a whole lot of speculation.
It really is a wild one. Okay, so for the record, the date was August 20th, 1966. The victims were Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana. They were electronics technicians, and they had traveled, get this, over 200 kilometers from their hometown. And if those lead masks weren't enough, the most baffling clue at the scene was this cryptic note.
Oh yeah, the note, what did it say again? It's been a while.
All right, so from what I remember, it read 16.3 euro, be at the agreed place, 18.3 ingest capsules, after effect, protect metals, await signal mask. I mean, come on, it sounds like it's straight out of a spy thriller.
Seriously,
Yeah.
a meeting, capsules, a signal, and those masks. Plus, they traveled a long way to get there. Seems kind of planned in a way, but also, who wears lead masks?
Right, that's the million-dollar question. And it gets weirder because witnesses who saw them on their trip said the men seemed super nervous, like they were in a hurry, almost like they were on some kind of secret mission.
Nervous, like someone was after them. Okay, hold on. My head's spinning a bit. Let's back up for a sec before we get into all the theories. What do the authorities actually know about, what were their names again? Manuel and Miguel.
Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana. And to add to the mystery, they weren't just electronics technicians, they were really into spiritualism and UFOs.
Wait, hold on. They were into spiritualism. Now that changes things.
Right, and it's definitely fueled a lot of the speculation surrounding the case.
So are we talking like full-on alien encounters here? Did they build some device and the lead masks were to protect them from, I don't know, psychic waves or something?
Well, some people definitely think so. And because the note mentions capsules, it's led some to speculate about hallucinogenic drugs,
Right.
maybe taken to enhance some kind of, extraterrestrial experience.
Right, like they were trying to make contact or something. But if that's the case, wouldn't there have been more evidence at the scene?
Exactly. And that's an important point. As interesting as the UFO theory is, there's no physical evidence to support it. No UFO sightings were reported around that time, no unusual lights in the sky, no strange symbols or anything like that. And the toxicology reports, inconclusive.
So it's a dead end. Or is it?
Not necessarily. Just because there's no concrete proof doesn't mean we can just completely disregard a theory, right? We just have to be critical and look at other angles too.
Okay, I'm listening. What else could explain this bizarre scene?
Well, let's not forget that both of these guys had backgrounds in electronics. What if, and stay with me here, this wasn't a spiritual thing at all, but some kind of scientific experiment, maybe one that went horribly wrong.
I see what you're saying. Like they were messing with something they didn't fully understand. But what kind of experiment needs lead masks on a remote hillside?
Right. It's the question of the century, really. It's puzzled investigators for decades. The thing is, lead blocks radiation, so maybe they were working with radio waves, X-rays, some type of energy they weren't equipped to handle. Their deaths. Maybe it was just a really tragic accident, a consequence of their own curiosity.
So on one hand, we've got potential alien contact, and on the other, a possible experiment gone wrong. Both are plausible, but both have their own issues. It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but the pieces could fit in multiple ways.
Exactly. And if that wasn't complicated enough, there's another theory we should talk about, one that might be even stranger than the others.
Okay, hit me with it. What could be stranger than aliens and secret science experiments?
Well, remember how we talked about Manuel and Miguel being into spiritualism?
Yeah, and how some people believe lead can block negative energies? Could these masks have been some kind of protection?
It's possible.
Yeah.
And this is where this other theory comes in. Some researchers think that the date of the incident, August 20th, might be important. In some, esoteric and occult traditions, August is a time for rituals and spiritual practices. So this has led some to believe that Manuel and Miguel weren't waiting for a UFO or doing a science experiment, but they were actually participating in some kind of ritual.
A ritual? But what kind of ritual needs lead masks and a meeting on a remote hillside like that? Right. And what about the capsules? What were those for? I need a little more to go on here.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It gets pretty complicated. Let's dive a bit deeper into the world of spiritualism and see if we can make sense of it all.
That's what this deep dive is all about, right? Unmasking the mystery.
Exactly. Now, spiritualism, it's a pretty broad term. It covers a lot of different beliefs and practices. But essentially, it's the idea that there's more to reality than what we can see and touch, like a whole realm beyond the physical. This includes a belief in spirits and that we can actually communicate with them.
Okay, so it's not just about contacting aliens. But how does any of this explain the lead masks?
Well, in certain spiritualist traditions, there's this belief that certain materials, like lead, have special properties that can influence spiritual energies.
Like how some people think crystals have different energies and stuff.
Exactly. Some believe that lead can act as this barrier, blocking out bad energy or entities.
So they were trying to protect themselves from something. But from what? And what signal were they waiting for?
Man, that is the question, isn't it? Unfortunately, the note is super vague, and we don't really have more context. It's almost impossible to say for sure what they were expecting. Some researchers have looked into old myths, local folklore, even rumors of energy vortexes on certain hillsides, trying to find some connection to this case.
Wow. This is a lot to take in. So we've got aliens, secret science, and now maybe a spiritual ritual gone wrong. It's like the universe just threw all its weirdest ideas at this case and said, good luck.
You got that right, and that's a big part of what makes this lead mask case so fascinating. It just refuses to be put into a neat little box. But if we're going to try and find some answers here, we've got to keep digging.
And dig we shall. All right, so before we went down that rabbit hole, we were talking about how this case has more layers than an onion. Spiritualism, rituals, lead masks as some kind of energy blocker. It's a lot to process.
No kidding. And what makes it so interesting is that each theory has its own complexities, its own, rabbit holes, We have to consider each one, look at the evidence, the context.
Because it's easy to get lost in all the what-ifs and come to some crazy conclusion.
Totally. And that's why it's important to remember we don't have all the pieces of this puzzle. There's still so much we don't know. For example, those masks. What were they really for?
Well, we talked about that whole spiritual thing. Lead can block certain energies, but how does that connect to the note and the signal? What were they waiting for,
That's where it gets good. Some researchers have wondered if maybe Manuel and Miguel weren't trying to block something from, the outside world, but something coming from inside themselves.
Wait, slow down. They were trying to block their own energy. What does that even mean?
Remember, they were super into exploring the spiritual side of things. While some spiritual practices try to bring you to an altered state of consciousness, like reaching a higher level of awareness.
Like meditation, that kind of thing?
Yeah, something like that. But some practices go even further, using certain techniques or even substances to get into a trance. They try to connect with other realms or entities.
So they might have believed lead could help them control these experiences.
Exactly. It's like they wanted to make some kind of conduit, a safe space, where they could handle those altered states without being totally overwhelmed.
Okay, I'm starting to get it now, but what about those capsules? Where do they come in?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Even though they never found any capsules at the scene, some people think they might have been some herbal mix, or some natural substance that can change your state of mind.
So they take these capsules, put on the masks to control the signal or energy, and wait for something to happen.
That's one way to look at it. It's all speculation at this point, of course, but it's a pretty compelling narrative, don't you think? Two guys, totally fascinated by the unknown, venturing into these uncharted territories of consciousness using whatever they could get their hands on.
Sounds like something out of a movie. Except this is real life with real life consequences. Which brings us back to the biggest question. What went wrong? Did the capsules have something toxic in them? Did their experiment backfire? Or did they come face to face with something they weren't prepared for?
Those are the questions that have been driving investigators crazy for years. And without more solid evidence, all we can do is, play with the possibilities.
It's like the universe is messing with us, throwing this puzzle at us. We've got all these clues, but the full picture, it's still out there.
Isn't it? And that's the thing about real mysteries. They stick with you, They make you think and question everything.
I hear that. But even if we never find out exactly what happened that day on Vintem Hill, the lead mask case, it still gives us something important to think about.
Ah, and what's that?
It reminds us that there's still so much we don't know, so much left to discover. And sometimes, the best answers aren't the ones we find, but the questions they create.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This case, it's not just a cold case, it's a testament to how powerful mystery can be, and the limits of what we can actually understand.
Well said. But before we get too philosophical, let's change gears for a second. Something else has always bothered me about this case. The location. Why Vintem Hill? Was it just a random spot, or could there be more to it?
That is a great question, and one that's gotten a lot of people talking over the years. Let's see if we can figure out what's so special about this location.
So we're back, and ready to get to the bottom of this lead masks case. Specifically the location. Vintem Hill. What's the deal with this place? Why would it have been important to these guys, Manuel and Miguel?
Well, at first glance, it doesn't seem like anything special. Just a regular hill outside of Niterói, not exactly known for being, out of the ordinary.
But there's got to be something more to it, right? People don't just pick a random hill to have a spiritual experience or for a secret experiment, do they?
Actually, you'd be surprised. In many cultures and traditions, hills and mountains have this kind of, mystical quality. They're seen as places of power, like being higher up brings them closer to the heavens or another realm or something.
Okay, yeah. Like those old temples you see built on mountains, right?
Yeah.
Or even just the idea of going to a mountaintop to meditate. You feel closer to something bigger than yourself,
Exactly. Now, there's no evidence of any ancient structures or, sacred sites on Vintem Hill itself. But it's possible that these guys, Manuel and Miguel, they believed it had a certain energy, like it was significant to whatever they were doing.
So they weren't drawn to a specific spot on the hill, but more like the hill itself.
Yeah.
The energy, the vibe, all of it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Remember, we're talking about guys who are all about spiritualism, about exploring things you can't see. Maybe they were drawn to Vintem Hill based on a feeling, a hunch, something they felt more than something they actually knew, if that makes sense.
So Vintem Hill, it was like their own personal portal to another dimension, their own little meeting place with the unknown.
It's definitely a possibility, and it adds another layer to this whole thing, doesn't it? We might never know the exact reason they chose that spot, but they traveled over 200 kilometers to get there. It had to have meant something to them.
It's like the hill itself is a witness to whatever happened, holding secrets we might never know.
That's the truth, and that's what's so captivating about the lead masks case. It goes beyond time and place, this reminder that even in a world where we think we know everything, there are still things we don't, mysteries that can't be solved.
Mysteries, like the lead masks case, they remind us that sometimes real life is way stranger than anything you can make up. This wasn't a story in a book. This was someone's life, their mystery. We might not ever have all the answers, but we keep talking about it, exploring the details, looking at all the angles. So, what do you think happened on that hillside? Did Manuel and Miguel stumble onto something we could never understand, or was it a terrible accident, a consequence of their curiosity? It's a question without an answer, lost to mystery, just like so much else in this case.
And that's where we leave you today. More questions than answers, but that's how it goes sometimes. The best mysteries are the ones that stay with you, the ones that make you think.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe the channel. Please share your feedbacks and thoughts through comments.